Tuomas, thanks again for being here. It's great to finally meet you face to face. I've been following your career with great interest for the past however many years I've been into wargaming, which is many at this point. But FD, my friend, has been playing various games for even longer than I have. So we're both really excited to be here with you. And we are obviously here to talk Trench Crusade, which is taking the world by storm. I think, are you over 5 million raised now with the Kickstarter and the post backer kit?
5.6 million just an hour ago.
Wow. Okay.
But that isn't all the sales, because we also put the STLs. We just plonked them on the MMF to have a store, and it's been selling like absolute hotcakes, the STLs there.
Fair enough.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, never saw that one coming, but hey, clearly there was a demand for it, so I'm glad to supply the drug.
Well, we're glad that you have, and we're junkies for it. So we have some questions here for the from the Trench Crusade local Trench Crusade community, and I'm gonna start going through them just randomly, and FD, whenever you want to go into one of your own, then.
Well, depending on the topic at hand, I'll jump in. For instance, if it's lore, if it's game design, or other things, I'll just jump in after you ask yours.
All right. So yeah, we have a few that are lore related and a few that are game design. So since the first one is lore related, people want to know. I know there's a map in the making for the game. I know it's coming. I know it's going to be here by the time the rulebook is done.
Yes.
But I apologize if you've already answered these questions before. I'm sure some of them will repeat in terms of you having been on various other shows or having talked to different people. But since there's no database for this sort of stuff, it tends to.
Don't worry about it. It's not a problem.
All right. So the first question is, what is the current status of Mount Athos in Trench Crusade, if you can share?
Mount Athos is actually mentioned in the lore of the Saint Methodius's Trench Pilgrim variant. It is now a stronghold for the monasteries of the monks that have now turned their talents into providing the sort of the spiritual weaponry to support the Great War. And there is a little bit of a schism, because the church is unified in the Trench Crusade universe, but there is still holdouts of the Orthodox faith, including the pilgrimage of the Saint Methodius. So the old church that does not recognize the unified church sort of lingers there. But because the monasteries are extremely well fortified, the church really wants to avoid another internal war. The last one was really bad for them. They are sort of letting it slip as long as they don't try to start converting the masses and the target all their efforts against the Hell incursion.
All right. Well, that's fairly encompassing, I think. FD, is there anything that touches upon this that you wanted to?
A little bit. So the Orthodox Church doesn't exist in this world, but there are leftovers. Does that include current day sects like the Bogomils or anything similar to that?
Well, the Trench Pilgrims can literally have a huge variety of a splinter and the fringe cults and the holdouts of the other denominations. The Orthodox Church does exist in one place. Trebizond has never fallen, even though it's completely surrounded by the heretic lands.
For instance, if it's lore,
hundreds of miles in every direction, there is heretic lands. Nobody knows why the heretics haven't taken it, because it's of course only one city. Maybe they want to use it to fester infighting between the church. So that's why, despite that, after the fall of Constantinople, when the Orthodox Church, partly because the Patriarch was lost, Constantinople was lost to hell, they decided to unify the churches again and set aside issues like the papal supremacy and have the go back to the mother church, the original church, not the Catholicism, but the unified church. So the church, as far as, but since nobody can get to Trebizond, that's why they are trying to find a way to break through the heretic lines and travel hundreds and hundreds of miles of the heretic lands and be the free Trebizond, which is of course hopeless. But the Orthodox Church is not quite extinguished.
I see.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, we know the church has, giant, big plans, big designs. So,
Yes.
can you tell us some of the results, if any, of the church's program?
Well, we know enough that we are not ready to reveal what it is yet, but church has been able to, in one way or another, it's to get to the moon. I'm not going to say whatever that was saying in space flight or something else, but there is some plans for the moon. So we'll come to that later, and I don't mean in the rule book. This is further in the future. Because if you think we have a 4-person team just doing this gigantic rule book and covering the main theater of war and the lore of that, that's taken everything we've got for the last few years. So we'll cover that first, and then we expand the world from there.
Just to touch on this topic, will there be any satellites, or is this also part of the cannot reveal yet?
Yeah, we don't want to reveal that yet. It's
Okay.
and I think we don't want to before we've even put the main rule book out. We wouldn't want to dilute the focus onto the main theater of war.
Fair. Okay.
Okay. Going back to the map side of things, could you tell us if Japan has been discovered by the Portuguese, or what the status of Japan is?
Yeah, we know that a contact has been established, and there are definitely a Nipponese mercenaries taking part in the Great War. We've talked about this, and there may or may not be in the stories that have been written for the rulebook some hint on that. But as for the deeper exploration of the how the Asia is doing, we are not gonna go there beyond a very basic things in the main rulebook. Again, because we tried to put, when we've covered the Iron Sultanate or the Ethiopians, we put a lot of research to try to make something that people coming from that part of the world can enjoy. And we don't want to do Asian countries just like use cliches and the American movies as reference. We want to put a similar sort of effort into the research, understanding the thinking about the how the world would have changed. So we don't know more about Japan except there definitely is contact. It's and there are people fighting.
Similar to this topic, how, if any, do the European countries do any colonialism across the world? Does that happen at all, or is it something that was basically cancelled due to demons?
Yep, there is no colonialism. There is trade between. In Europe, you will have tobacco, all the things that integral to the First World War. Like thinking about that, the soldiers with his cigarette is the most iconic thing ever from World War One. So the contact must have been established. So there is trade. There's also alliances like Ethiopia and several other of the African nations, the north of Africa, we know are allied to they are part of the allies. So and it doesn't really make sense trying for anybody to go and put their boot on the neck of the Africans with their armies while their armies are desperately needed to defend the main front, the new Antioch. And also because of the spiritual nature of the warfare, the places like Ethiopia, who allegedly hold the Ark of the Covenant and the other treasures from the King Solomon, they are very, very powerful part of the alliance. And if you know the history, it was actually the Ethiopian army actually defeated a fully modern Western army.
The Italians, yes.
Yeah, the Italians. It's the Battle of Adwa. So they are also the only nation that never was colonized in the real history. So they were a very good anchor point for us. But the colonialism never took place because, quite frankly, the faithful nations have a way bigger problem right now.
Yeah. Well, so I guess in short, this world has some bad things, demons, and some good things. No colonialism. Yay.
Yeah,
Win some, lose some.
I mean, when there is an enemy that the sort of wants to end the world, it's easier to hate that enemy than the somebody across the water or who isn't currently trying to kill you and end the world.
Well, I'd just like to say that in this case, I'm very excited to see what you do with the American civilizations.
Yeah. Well, that's another one for the future. We do have an artist from that area of the world that we'd like to work with. But again, it's also good to remember that let's compare up to another miniature games company. Let's say Games Workshop. Last time I checked, they had well over 3,000 people. We have 4, so we have to pick our battles. They have
yes.
more people.
You're on your way towards 3,000.
4 is almost. Oh yeah. I mean 4, 3,000. What's it's almost the same.
Yeah, exactly. So I was going to ask what happened to the Mesoamerican civilizations like the Aztec, given they already did human sacrifice, and as such, hell maybe had a vested interest in helping them. I think I know that there is some conflict, or you confirmed it, or it's been mentioned in the Discord, that there's some conflict along the coasts of the Americas, maybe, with the heretics, the heretic fleets.
Yeah, we believe that there is we've had very preliminary sketches about this, but we are really not gonna go there because it's a very fascinating and interesting part of the world history, and again one where we would rather try to do research and find the really interesting and maybe new and fresh angles how things could go, rather than just taking the most obvious Hollywood movie and using reference. We've tried with all the other cultures, including European ones, is to try to find the more interesting angles rather than maybe the most obvious ones, wherever we've been able to.
All right. Well, in that case,
cool.
FD?
I just said cool. It's fine. It's great.
Okay. Coming back to Europe, could you tell us what exactly is the moving fortress of Britannia?
Oh, yes. So the Royal Navy of England, there is no the United Kingdom in the Alba, i.e. Scotland is free, Wales is free, Ireland is free, because again, England didn't have the luxury of going and conquering their neighbors, because the heretic fleets they put a really heavy pressure on them. When Nelson was defeated and the Royal Navy no longer ruled the seas, the coastal raids started, and the Britain constructed this immense moving the tank, and or a sort of a combination of a train that they reasonably quickly along any part of the British coast to go and counter a major heretic incursion, and it's it's got a retinue of the armored vehicles, infantry, air force. So it's basically, since they could not fortify the entire coast of England, they created this fortress that can move the main defensive force to stop the heretic incursions, because they lack the manpower and these natural resources to just fortify the entire coast. So it also has a peaceful influence, obviously not just trying to take care of the physical fighting, but also to repel these like the court and the Goetic magic. So it's also very heavily built with a Holy Church artifacts embedded into it. But think of this absolutely enormous land ship that travels the coast of England, and it's changed the way that the English fight. They are now very heavily defense minded, and their whole the army is built to push invaders back to sea when they make a landing.
Okay, so it's basically landlocked to this series of rails that it moves along, you've said?
Yep, that's the current thinking. Of course, we will probably develop the visual detail. That's a fair assessment of the development right now.
Okay.
I'm eager to see the concept art for this.
Oh yes, Mike is very keen. We have somebody really great doing that, hopefully.
So moving further along through the areas that we've explored, could you please expand on the borders of the Sultanate, such as the fact that Mecca is outside the wall, which raises some questions when...
Yes. So Alamut outside the area, the first portion of the wall was discovered in the Sultanate of Rum, but it's only a small portion of the wall was there. It runs sort of the not quite midway through the Levant. Most of that is lost, but the area that we know now in Iraq, where there would be Baghdad and the other cities, and a far into the east, is all under the wall. So the wall is longer than the Great Wall of China, which at its heyday was, I believe, 22,000 kilometers. So the area it protects is vast. It doesn't cover Alamut, which for some reason can hold its own. Again, it's the heretics force, maybe because of the magic of the old man, haven't been able to conquer it. And a lot of the cities were lost and destroyed in Levant, but they've been rebuilt and renamed within the wall. So that's why some people are confused. Because if, say, Damascus has been destroyed, there is another Damascus that the Iron Sultanate has built within the wall. It's to retain the tradition and to be a new home for the refugees from there. But yeah, lots of people maybe get hung up with the word Sultanate of Rum, which was not where we said that the wall encompasses it, but that's where it was found.
Mhm.
So it's quite a bit bigger than the people think right now.
So the old Sultanate of Rum is basically the westernmost point of the Iron Sultanate,
Yes,
but it extends all the way through Persia.
Yep, and they down to the coast. Now, Mecca being outside is interesting because when the Hellgate opened, a huge sandstorm covered Mecca and Medina, which the people of the Sultanate, of course, see as a gods interfering and protecting the two holy places. But of course, it puts the Sultan in a very difficult position, because in order to become Caliph, the prince of the believers, you should be ideally the protector of the two holy places. That's why I call the Sultan Sultan, and he's not called the Caliph. Even for obviously there is nobody who could challenge him for the title. The Sultans have not claimed the title because they would like to liberate Mecca and Medina. Whereas we will go into this in Rulebook, but there has been expeditions the Iron Sultanates launched to try to relieve them and find out if the holy places are still safe in the sandstorm. But obviously going into the heretic heartlands, that has ended very badly. But the airships of the Sultanate do go and check time to time to check that the sandstorm is still in place, and those far it is.
Airships, that sounds interesting. Are those are larger implements of war? Like, I know there's the tank palanquin for the trench ghosts priest, and obviously we've got the Westphalia campaign with the motorcycles that we've seen, and I think there's also been a recent post that they're working on mounted combat with horses and the like. But how big would you like to go in terms of, would you like to reach actual airship combat in obviously a different incarnation of the game? Because I don't think you can add airships to a skirmish.
And you shouldn't. It's the rules would have to be written completely differently for a larger scale combat. In the future, absolutely. But now I'm talking about far future. There is something to be said about, because we're small. In order for us to supply like that, we supplied a full warbands for all the 6 main factions. For this small company, that was a big effort. And I like the fact that it's reasonably easy, simple and fast to get to Trench Crusade. That's also reflected in the rules, where I really tried to make them so that you can learn them very quickly, but they offer, hopefully, almost endless depth to a place. So going to try to force that philosophy and system to a army scale battles, I think that would need a separate product. That would be in the far in the future. And I would really want to find out genuinely, is that what people want? My gut feeling has been that there's a lot of, like, the new people's lives nowadays, it's they don't have as much time as they used to when I was a kid, partly because social media and skirmish games seem to hit the spot that you can engage in the hobby and do a beautiful warp and complete it quite fast. Go and play with your friends, collect it not to break your bank, and still engage with this world. While I mean, I love huge armies, space for the table and massive armies plus the cost. I would never like to do a game that's only for the rich people.
Fair enough. Speaking of rich people, what's going on with the Byzantine Empire?
Which empire? Sorry, you broke up.
The Byzantine Empire.
Byzantine Empire is lost. There are remnants of the Varangian Guard. Some of them have gone up north and established enclaves. The Varangian Guard still fights to recover it because they've maintained their loyalty to the fallen empire and perhaps the faith partly as well. There is actually some artwork on them, so we are working on more of it. Some of them have gone to the theocracy of Hellas. It's to fight the invaders from there, and lots of them have gone to New Antioch to serve the Duke. So the empire doesn't exist anymore, and because of the unification of the church, its old parts because obviously it was their history did not take place as it did in our time. So the parts of it, like the area of Greece, is really now part of the umbrella of the unified church. But no, there is no more Byzantine Empire. It's and also during when the emperor was killed, there was no heirs. The heretics wiped out the bloodline. So the closest person that would be the inheritor would probably be the Duke, who does not want to be an emperor. He's the military leader, not the civil leader of the faithful.
Gotcha.
Well, on this topic, I'd like to interject with a rule-like question. Any chances on seeing a Varangian warband or a Varangian variant for New Antioch?
Oh yes, absolutely. We'd love to do Varangians. It's we really like that, and there is also gameplay-wise, there's a lot of interesting things we could do. Thinking of in the First World War like setting, we'd absolutely want to do that, and I know Mike is itching to do art for them. I'd love to write the rules.
Exciting
And
times.
Speaking of rules here, can trench ghosts be set free if the holy relic that binds them is destroyed, or is their state permanent?
It's an interesting question. We haven't the answer definitely. My gut feeling it would be that if the holy ground that ties them would be desecrated, like if the domain of hell would completely conquer the area and maybe like the pollute the holy ground where they fell, then maybe they could be freed. Then again, it's the hell being hell. It's quite possible that the demon lord who would be responsible for doing it, they would just go, why would I do that? It's really fun that they are suffering.
Fair enough. We are speaking of the sort of rules and mechanisms. I think the current v1.6 at the time of recording rulebook is about 165 or so pages long.
Yeah.
Should have it within reach, but I don't know exactly where it is. How much lore is added to that? So that's the main rules, and most of those 160 odd pages are actually the variants, because the rules are like 10 pages tops, I think, something like that.
Yep.
Just very. But
Yep.
how much does the lore add to the count?
80 pages, I'd say, around 80 pages. We are very close to finishing the manuscript, which isn't, of course, same as finishing the book, but I have a pretty good handle now. I have very little left that I need to write. So obviously turning it over to editors, continuing playtesting and tweaking the values and descriptions. That, of course, happens until the final layout is locked down, but the 80 pages or so of lore. A lot depends on the layout art, the selection of the fonts, the size of the fonts. So I can't give you an absolute certain answer, because obviously the free rules won't have the same layout, because the free rules are supposed to be a living rulebook, so the layout is sim. But the actual rulebook, we've hired an extremely talented designers and graphic artists to get it right. So it will be much more of a artifact, while the free rules are living rulebook. Of course, then we will obviously continue developing the game. And one of the promises we made was that the rules are always free, the latest version, and we want to keep that.
Very nice.
Okay. Defty?
Shall we move on to game design stuff, or do you still have some lore questions?
I think
I have one, actually.
Oh, please.
Well, since we're the Romanian community, we have to ask. I'm sorry if you've been asked this before. I'm sure you've been asked this before. Dracula and the area. What's going on?
Yep, I mean, we know that the Wallachian voivodes they stopped a major hell incursions, because one of the problems heretics have that it's very difficult to try to conquer the mainland Europe by leaving the new Antioch behind, because obviously supply lines, communications, reinforcements, you don't want to leave the biggest and the most powerful enemy army behind your forces. So any attacks have to be very fast strikes. And this was one of those lightning offensives that they tried to strike at the heart of Europa before New Antioch can react. But they were stopped. It's at Romania. Now, whatever the story about the impaled heretics is true, could be war propaganda, could be that it happened. And you have to look at the psychological side, because of course the faithful lords of the area, they rather would have it that the hell doesn't attack them directly. So it would be very good to get rumor out that there are invincible defenders there. It's definitely an area we want to study. It's also definitely the area where we want to avoid just doing the most predictable and boring answers to everything. But it is also, there is strength in the archetypes. Like, we definitely want to do Polish winged hussars, for example, because the Commonwealth, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, never broke up. But of course, we want to give it a Trench Crusade twist. But yeah, we would love to cover that in the future. I mean, the biggest problem we really have that there are so many things we'd like to do that it's really tough to prioritize what we should do first.
Well, I'd just like to still ask, are the principalities under the Holy Church, or are they sort of separate?
Well, they are nominally part of the Faithful Alliance. As I said, it's the Church has a very strong grip on the major the capitals of power. But the further you are from the heartlands, the more unreachable you are, the more wobbly the control of the churches. But yes, if you'd look at the world map, it would be counted being part of the lands of the unified church. How true that is on the ground is an interesting question. You probably saw with Aire that
yes.
the Fianna, it's the quite pagan in their approach to life. They definitely are not paragons of the church, but they are so good at the guerrilla warfare because of the invasion of the island that took place, that the church just turns a blind eye, because the faithful need every soldier they've got, especially good soldiers. So it's quite possible that there would be some traditions that last in these areas, like the current day Romania, that are not so close to Rome.
All right, chuck this one up. Too eager to see the result down the line.
Yeah, the Order of the Dragon is definitely one of the more interesting tidbits of the timeline that I think all of us over here are looking forward to seeing develop.
Yeah, and Mike has done some sketches of the Order of the
I
Dragon.
think we've seen a couple. Yeah, they've already been or teased, I guess, for a bit.
Yeah.
How far away do you think we are from I guess, a more stable version of the rules where you don't have to edit like entire passages or abilities, and you're just focusing on, let's say, point balancing? Is that close or?
Yeah, it's close. Month or two. It's the month is probably the right answer to that. Because I am no longer like I'm doing the V7 1.7 edit, and now it's starting to be relatively minor and more to do with the language and the order of things rather than changing anything anymore. Because the game is played a lot right now, and the problems very rarely now are anymore with the core rules. These are more sort of balance problems in the warband lists and the sub-factions and their interactions. So I don't see much need to. There is nothing in the core rules that worries me. Can some, but the game works. I mean, they reports and all the players seem to be having a ton of fun with the game. So I don't think that if it ain't broken, fix it. It meets the creative goals I had, which is the to play the game, but you can play 20 games and still learn something new every game. It supports the narrative campaign and repeated play. So I am quite happy with the core. So not long now.
Okay. Yeah, I think during our latest game, I actually played Trench Crusade with FD last week, and the couple things we did wrong, or I did wrong actually, was that I forgot that the witch was now, the Artie witch, the heretic Artie witch was now levitating, so I failed a climb check with her. And I'm not actually sure if there's any.
Hey.
I'm not actually sure if there were any other, things we were missing out on in terms of actual like basic rules. So that's kind of nailed down in our minds as well, I think. Has in terms of those basic rules, shall we say, has there been a level of feedback that you're getting that airs more towards a longer game, especially because there are levels of gameplay in terms of actual height on the board? So why I'm asking this question is because most of the scenarios are like 4 or 5, maybe 6 turns long, and you have a handful of models, so like 7 to 10, 11, 12 models. And if one of them is trying to get up on high and misses that climb check, fails that risky roll, they're kind of stuck. Like you have a limited amount of activations. There's a lot of action economy going on in the game, which I think is one of the better parts of it, actually. But has there been a tendency for players to want longer games so that they can take advantage of those levels that they can climb to and gain, attack bonuses and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, for the later campaign scenarios, which we are now doing, I am also lengthening the turn number. They were kept quite small because I was thinking of beginning players, and there's a great strength that if the game lasts when you start out on the average hour or less, or 90 minutes at max, it's much easier to get into like playing multiple games. But the further you go into campaign, two things start to happen. Well, three things. One, your action economy grows as you acquire new powers, new equipment, glory items. Your guys get more skillful, so you succeed in more things. So there's less failures that they stop the turn, and you have more models. Like you have more things to do. Plus, we'll increase the turn length. So my typical end game matches can now take hour and a half, even 2 hours for a big warbands. So I would say that the people who want to play longer games, they should play with a larger ducat value, and they should take the mountaineering kits. There's the problem. It's the part of it is also how you build your board, because obviously the climb checks are there that there would be, otherwise everybody would just be climbing up high. There has to be some risk, but the people should be using ladders. People should be using walkways when they construct scenery. The game is more fun. The more elevation changes and the more stairs, ladders, the fire steps there are, it's the more dynamic it gets. I think the climb check was a necessary one. It's cause it's if it wasn't there, then everybody would attempt to do a climb and diving charge every time it's possible, and you need that risk reward. So mountaineering kits, buy them today.
Yes, I think FD had some last game. He did fail one climb check, though. I'm not sure if the model had a mountaineering kit or not.
He did.
He did, and he failed. It was shoddy.
But it's okay. He then got up and then waited another turn and then turned your artillery witch into fine mist.
Yes.
Speaking on that, though, I do have a question a bit more targeted. Did you purposefully not give New Antioch access to sniper scopes without glory to stop them from having a sniper rifle with an actual sniper scope on the sniper priest at the start of a campaign?
It was more sort of that I read a lot of the real history, and sniper scopes, which are obviously very common nowadays, they were really rare in the First World War, super expensive to make, cost of the fine engineering and the training required. And really, the game is supposed to be a campaign game. So when I play, I'm always playing a part of campaign. Even when I'm just testing, I'm just checking if I'm this stage of a campaign, I have this many glory. So a lot of people maybe get hung up with the 700 ducat warband that they doesn't have all the options, but that's kind of the purpose. Like when I served in the military, we didn't train snipers before we completed the basic training and found out who was a really good shot, and only then did they get any sniper equipment. So I kind of wanted to here's the feeling that they write my sniper priest. Now they acquire the sniper scope, so they get better. So maybe people are getting a comparing the beginning of the campaign in Trench Crusade to a army game of 40k. It's not the same thing, because in one you are buying a fully equipped, finalized army, while in Trench Crusade 700 ducats is like the beginning of a free band that takes service in the of the Duke or a Infernal Lord, and it's like this little startup company, and they goes out and they tries to survive, rather than the frontline fully equipped military unit that's been through 1,000 battles.
Okay, thank you. Still on that subject, sort of, any chances for more auxiliary equipment like weapon tripods or anything like that?
Absolutely.
Just for the MGs?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the we also remember we have the Carcass Front supplement coming out at the end of the year. So there will most likely be expanded lists. It's the of new things in there too. I want to be a little bit careful not to adding tons of stuff to the rulebook right now, because I want to play the stuff, because it's always dangerous to add something little in the end, just before the book goes to print, and then find out that you broke the game. So you have to also remember that the rulebook is not going to be the end. We do want to do supplements.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Still on the part of more targeted rules questions. Down models are interesting when they're downed. I just want to clarify, if a model is downed in melee, it still gets to make a melee attack against a retreating enemy, right?
Yeah. I mean, they are rubbish at it usually, because of the minuses.
Yeah.
But think of it like a pistol is a melee weapon. And let's say you knock me down and you start running away, then of course I'm going to shoot you. I might not hit you because I'm lying on my back, but the battle should be seen reasonably dynamic. The down isn't stunned. It's literally that quite often down just means that like a shot came towards you and you threw yourself in the ground. And the blood marker represents the psychological pressure being under fire rather than a bullet in your head. Or it might have bounced off from your armor. The blood markers, because we didn't want to do a separate stress markers and psychological stress markers and bleeding markers, because the game would have gotten into an unplayable mess. So the blood markers are a combination of psychological, supernatural, and physical pressure and injuries, rather than that they always represent a bullet going through you.
Right. So that's also why down models still contest objectives, right? Because they do.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Gotcha.
In fact, in the optional rules, I allow players to go down voluntarily.
Okay. Speaking of the supplement, are there going to be, in terms of tournaments or organized play? I know this is mainly a narrative game, and we've been playing it narratively, but are you going to have stuff like standardized terrain deployments and stuff like that that will be used, so that will come to be known as, this mission does that with specific sizes and templates and something of the sort?
Yeah, there are people who enjoy tournaments, and I believe a tournament that is run as a sort of in good spirits is great. So and maybe I'll do this with the community, that there are people who have passion for tournament gameplay. Yes, I want to do those, but I also want to be very careful that this doesn't become two parts of the community fighting with each other. That would be the worst end result. I am very much a big tent designer. I believe there should be room for any kind of hobbyist. You just want to paint the miniatures, that's great. You want to just do you just like the art and maybe do your own sketches. This is totally fine. You want to play the game mainly and you're not so into painting. It's not a problem. I mean, enough to support some effort. You're really into the lore and that's your main focus. That's not wrong. So I would hate that some games have gotten into a situation where it becomes the tug of war between narrative and the tournament players, and I will try to find a way where that does not happen. But I'm a tournament player myself. I've won several tournaments in wargaming. Inherently, there is nothing wrong with it. It's it should not become a us versus 10. Then that would be the worst result, and I will think mainly how can I avoid that.
Yeah, it does risk getting into this min-maxing mentality with people, power gaming and taking advantage and finding exploits.
Yeah, and look, if you and me decide that let's play a competitive game, no holds barred, we are just trying to play the game as skillfully as possible and try to see who has better command of the game rules. Nothing wrong with that. What would be wrong is that we would start claiming that that's the only way to play the game, or start talking that the campaign rules narrative side is not as worthy. That's wrong. Nothing wrong if everybody comes and they enjoy the competition, and plenty of people like that. The important thing is to respect all the other hobbyists and understand that the community is stronger together rather than as a separate.
Mm-hmm. And has there currently been, because I think FD has something that ties into this, has there been a certain build that is more proficient at doing combat against a larger number of opposing warbands thus far, or is there like a clear winner in the warband factions?
Yeah, there was an imbalance in the court before. I think I dealt with most of it. I'm still looking at it. Overall, Heretic Legion is just on the top of it's the winning mode faction, but not by a huge margin. I believe in all the games I've recorded, which is all the ones that I've seen and reported, and there's now so many of them. I think they won 56% of their games, which is very good, but it is not outrageous.
Yeah.
They tend to win tournaments quite a bit, but they not alone, not exclusively. So yes, I think there are some very good builds, but I don't think there is anything that and especially within the forces, that there is only one way to play any faction. We see a great variety of different, which is great.
Gotcha.
Yeah, my questions did go in this direction. Basically, there's a graph which I can't find a way to share in this Google thing. I think the squiggly colored ones with all the 6 factions and the ranges where they're most effective.
Yes,
I'll add it to the description of the video when it goes live, so people know what we're talking about.
Okay,
But-
well, would you say that graph is relatively accurate, and was that by design?
Oh yes, it's there is I always start any new warband building its weaknesses first, and this can be not like I write a rule that there are penalties to this, but rather if for example, New Antioch does not have inherent weapons that give it 3d6 add together injury rolls. They have to do them via combined arms using the bloodbath. That is by design. It's so each faction has the area where if you play well in that area, you will be stronger than others, but it's only one part of the game. There is no warband. I think the Heretic Legion is the closest that can be pretty damn good in almost any area. But even they have the clear weaknesses. They are, for example, not going to win War of Attrition with the Black Rail. So yes, the graph is quite. I didn't check. I used like the bullet points and put them against each other, but yeah, it's quite close to what I was thinking when I wrote the rules.
That's really nice to know. So New Antioch was meant to be basically a very short-ranged faction and not excel at close combat, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the combined arms, and you have to look at, for example, the Ethiopian variant. If you want to play New Antioch that does melee, Ethiopians can do pretty well. It's and if you are good at using your fire teams, triggering bloodbaths, or doing the Prussians with the tank splitter swords, you can fight in melee. You do have to go for it, but the vanilla Antioch, yes, it's it dominates the classic trench warfare. That's where they are good at.
I was asking this because I was looking at the rules and the stats, and basically from all of the troops, if we ignored the mechanized heavy infantry, they only have bonuses to melee. Well, except engineers, I guess. So the shock troops have bonuses to melee, and the engineers have bonuses to ranged, but there's only 2 of them.
Yep.
It felt a little bit disjointed, and I was wondering what your thoughts were on giving the shock troops bonuses to melee, even though the faction is meant to be played more as the short-range firefight as opposed to melee combat. And I'm talking about New Antioch as a general faction, not the sub-factions.
Oh yes, I mean the idea there was really to that you would get close with infiltrating trench moles with flamethrowers. That would be the way that you approach the short-range firefights, like a classic cleaning the trenches, and then the discount you get from bolt-action rifles would give you like a massed fire with the yeoman. The reasoning behind it was that I always wanted, like, to me the ideal way that the New Antioch plays is that you have a fire team, they activate one guy, it's the throws a grenade, it's onto the heretic behind a curve in a trench, it's and then the dashes to safety, and the other guy, now that the grenade has taken the guy down, is they close in, use their pistols, is the automatic pistol for a assault weapon, then they do a diving charge with a with a bayonet, and there are just piling in bonuses, finishing it off with the bloodbath. The idea wasn't so much that you look at every model individually and compare their stat lines, but rather how does the faction play together. And this is why the Iron Sultanate has troops for any situation. They have the good troops for almost anything, but they have very little inbuilt synergy. So if New Antioch didn't have the synergy benefits and all the variants available to it, Iron Sultanate purely on paper would be better. But of course, in actual gameplay, the things that work well for New Antioch and where their benefits lie, it's the allow them to be very competitive with Iron Sultanate.
I see. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think I've gone through all my questions, FD.
I have one last question, but it's not directly related to Trench Crusade. It's just sort of connected. With your passion for emerging narrative gameplay, which you've shown in More Time and now in Trench Crusade, have you considered or have you already worked on anything like tabletop RPGs, for instance?
How would I say? We don't want to give anything away, but you have a reason to be optimistic, I'd say.
Ho 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 ho. Okay.
So obviously nothing's happened before it's happened, but you have reason to be optimistic.
Okay. This makes me happy.
Well,
a lot of people want to know, like, what is the cost of packet of cigarettes in New Antioch? It's what kind of the boots they wear, how do they deal with the language barriers? It's and so on and so forth, which is better suited for a tabletop RPG than a miniature skirmish war game. But it shows that the people find the world, the lore, and the world building interesting enough. And the evocative enough that they really want to know that stuff, and that usually is a good mark to me to build more there, because the people actually want to find out. You should always pull with the rope, not push with it. So if the fans want something, give them that rather than try to give them something they don't.
Great.
Don't play pool with a rope. Yes. All right. Well, I think that's a good cue to end on.
Okay.
Tuomas, thanks so much for your time, and I'm personally looking forward to everything the universe has to offer in the future, and we hope to be able to maybe hornswoggle you into another one of these meetings in the future if you can find it.
If you have something on the white, I'll comment the chat. I've always wanted to go to Romania, so one of the few European chance to, even though I work with lots of Romanians, I've never had a chance to visit. So they tell the organizers to invite me. So we can come and continue this in person.
That would be fantastic, and we'd be happy to share with you our local customs.
Definitely.
They involve alcohol.
Hopefully I can keep my clothes on. Well, I'm a Finn, so this time I might be fully proved, but again, here we see the Hollywood influence, which, shall we say, that the American view of Romania can be a bit skewed because the only thing they see is medieval peasants. And my friends, Romanian friends who I work with, they weren't medieval peasants.
Well, it's impaling one day and pole dancing the next. So we do it all over here.
Exactly.
All right. Well,
okay. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks so much.
Say hi to the Romanian TC community. Bye-bye.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Have a nice night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.